Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we have made it to the final book in the Dark Promises series by M. James. Now, if you haven't listened to the first two books in this series, those reviews are going to be listed down below in the description section. So once you listen to those, come and join us as we dive into book three, the final book, Ruthless Promise. Sophia wakes up. She's in a room. She, of course, doesn't know where she is. She's hearing an Italian accent. She's got a splitting headache. She's trying to place the voices because, again, why would an Italian person be kidnapping her when she's married to the Don, right? So all of a sudden, she hears the voice she's been afraid of since she first heard it. Vito Rossi. Now, of course, he couldn't kidnap her himself because he's in a whole ass wheelchair. But he, of course, has men that were clearly still loyal to him and not to Luca. So she's gagged, she's tied up. Rossi comes over, tells her, Luca can't come save you this time. And tells her that one of the guys, his name was Ricard, that he likes to tie women up so he can do all types of filthy things to them. He apparently even plans to record the guys doing these filthy things to her. So I'm like, yeah, they all sick. So he's talking to her, old boy, Rossi, and all she can think of was, I should have stayed my ass home. Like, I should have just not tried to leave. And the Ricard guy comes over. He's got a knife, and Rossi tells him to cut off her blouse. And I want to say her jeans too. And this is the part where we find out a little bit about the Ricard guy. So he was married, and his wife was cheating on him with his brother. And he made the statement that she was taking it up the ass from his brother, so he had fun carving her up. So then after that, Rossi is saying stuff, asking her questions. She, of course, can't answer because she's gagged. So he's like, no, if I take the gag off of you, are you going to scream? So in her mind, she's like, you're going to do whatever to me anyway. So, of course, she's going to scream her head off. And I also forgot to mention, though, when Ricard came up to her, the first thing she did, oh, girl, she kicked him and hit him in the mouth when he came up to the bed. So, and to the point where there was blood dropping. So she did pretty good. So then they take the gag off, and of course she's screaming bloody Mary, right? Because she's yelling, please help. And then she gets two blows to the face. Rossi telling her, you know, I knew you were such a filthy liar. I should have known you would do that. And she in her mind is thinking about her child and, how sorry she is because she wanted to protect her child and she's not able to. We switch to Luca. He's in his office and we find out that that beautiful bracelet that he gave her, we're thinking he was just being nice and it was all special. Well, it was. But the thing has a tracker on it. So when he walked away from his desk, he didn't know there was this alert going off. So when he comes back to his desk, he sees that she's left the penthouse and it shows that she's on her way to St. Patrick's Cathedral. So, of course, he's pissed. He's like, why does she do this? Like, what? So he also is upset with himself because of the previous night, how he came home with the blood still on his shirt and stuff. So he figures maybe that was too much for her, and she was like, I gotta get out of here. Okay. So he winds up, I want to say he takes a cab to the cathedral. As soon as he gets to the cathedral, he knows something's wrong. The door to the cathedral is open, and so he immediately draws his gun. He gets in. He sees Father Donahue, clearly been hurt. He is alive. He, of course, is like, what happened? And, of course, pissed off because he's like, why did Sophia come to see you? And so Father Donahue tells him, I can't tell you why she came. Like, I can't go against my oath. And, of course, Luke is like, I don't give a crap about your oath. I want to know why she was here. And he, of course, is not going to tell him. He also looks at Luca with disappointment. He says to him, I know you're better than what you're doing. And that, of course, it does affect Luca, but he still wants to know, like, what the hell happened. And all Father Donahue can say is somebody knocked him out from the back, and when he came to, Sophia was gone. So he tries again to make him, give up the reason as to why she came. And he was going to help her, but of course, Father, he knows she came. It's almost like he kind of knows, but he doesn't know exactly. Like, he knows she clearly had to come there for help, right? He wants to know exactly why she was trying to run away, basically. And again, Father's not going to tell him. So then the alert goes off again. It's picked up a signal, that bracelet, and it's showing that she's at the safe house that is Rossi's. So now he knows Vito Rossi kidnapped her, and now he is about to go take out everyone who was involved in it. But before he leaves, the dude hits the damn priest twice because he's pissed at the priest, because he knows, even though the priest wouldn't say it, Luca knows she came there to get help to run. And that means you had to have offered her help. You know what I mean? That if you ever want to leave, it's like, he could put two and two together. And that upsets him. Poor man, knocks the man out. He's like, he feels bad, but he's like, not too bad, because he's just going to call for the guy help and have someone take him to the hospital. But I'm still like, oh my gosh, dude. We switch back to Sophia. They've injected her with more drugs. It makes her feel like her skin is on fire. Rossi's questioning her, trying to find out, does she know the plan? What is Luca's plan with Victor? All this type of stuff. And she keeps telling him, I don't know. I don't know. He, of course, doesn't believe her, but he keeps asking her different questions. And then eventually he tells her that the drug he gave her is going to kill her, but not before Ricard can have his fun with her. One of the guys, because it wasn't just, Rossi and the Ricard guy, was some other ones too, but they kind of stayed back. Now the other ones, they wanted to screw her too. But one of the guys, he looked a little younger. He didn't look like he wanted to be there. She was kind of hoping, like, if she was able to get out, that might be the person to help her, because he clearly looked like so uncomfortable. So then they cut off her bra and her panties, and they gave her more drugs, and then she starts hearing shouting, and she hears a familiar voice, but she's like, it's got to be that I'm at the end, right? I'm starting to hallucinate. So she's just kind of like, at this point, she's ready for death. She hears a different guy say, get in there first. All this type of stuff is like jumbling together. She's ready to go. And so she just says to herself and to her fetus, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. So Luca sees that she's been taken to safe house, which is in upstate New York. So he goes back home, gets his Maserati, and heads up there. So, of course, he's coming in the front door, guns blazing, no sneaky shit here. He wants his jokesters to know that he is coming. He shoots Ricard in the knee first, then in the shoulder, because when he walked in the house, he could hear someone was hurt, but it sounded like someone was trying to scream, but they couldn't get it out. And so when he opens the door and he sees her naked, tied up, her face bruised, bloody, it's just, a complete awful scene. He takes out a few of the guys. The rest of them ran. They were terrified. because they knew he was just going to take out everybody. He then takes out Ricard, and the last person he's going to take out is Rossi. Rossi, of course, before he knows he's about to die. So he says to him, you know, how weak he is and that he shouldn't have handed the power over to him. He should have handed it to the position to Franco, all this type of crap. And he made a statement about how she was going to bring down the whole organization. And so Luca does ask him, like, why do you think, how is she going to bring down a whole organization? And Rossi just says, well, it would have been a big chunk of it. And Rossi says, do you want to know why? And Luca says it doesn't even matter, and then just shoots him in the head. And I'm like, you should have found out before you took him out. You know what I'm saying? Like, he also saw her necklace in Rossi's hand after he had shot him. It was like, he wondered why she hadn't been wearing the necklace. Clearly, Rossi had it. So again, even though he didn't see the necklace until after he had killed him, but I just didn't think that was really wise. Like, why wouldn't you try and get the information out of him? He would have told you because of the simple fact he knew he was finna die. He was gonna tell it. I don't think he would have withheld. He would have told, you know? So I thought that was just kind of dumb not to do that. But anyway, so he scoops her up. Touching everything hurts her, so she's, you know, in so much pain. He takes her to the hospital, but of course he's decided that basically he's got to be cold to her even in public. Like, he cannot show affection because if people find out she means something, she's gonna forever be a target. And so I'm like, here we go, back to book fucking 1. Sophia wakes up. She can't make out where she is. At first, her hands are restricted, and she's thinking, oh my gosh, they still have her. They injected her with something, and she goes back to sleep. She doesn't feel pain eventually this time, though. Considering when she was tied up with Rossi, as soon as they injected her, she started feeling the pain. So eventually she wakes up again and she realizes she's in the hospital, but her hands are still bound to the bed. They're not uncomfortable, but you know, I mean, the girl was just bound, you know, this is still going to be a problem. So the nurse comes in and says, oh, Miss Romano, you're awake. That's just great, you know. So Sophia asked for water and asked, you know, why her hands were bound. The woman didn't answer it at first. The woman got her some water, and then Sophia asked her again, like, why are my hands bound? The woman said, when you came in here, you were thrashing so bad, you were trying to rip your skin off. So we had to restrain you in order to make you stop from doing it. And she had thought it was probably Luca that made them do it because, you know, she had, you know, escaped from the penthouse. So she thought he had done it as a way to keep her as well. But it was because of the situation. So she goes to grab her stomach and she says, my baby. And she's waiting for the woman to tell her that she's lost the baby. But the nurse says, your baby's fine. You're 6 weeks along. So Sophia tells her, don't tell her husband. And the woman's like, you know, well, she can't, you know, like, not put that in her medical file. But I'm like, but why would her husband have access to her medical file? But then again, he might, considering all the stuff that he had her sign. That's a possibility. So I'm not even going to knock it. Um, the woman is like, again, a little kind of like, why would you not want to tell your husband, you know? And she kind of looks at her and she says, do you not know who my husband is? And the woman's like, no. So she says, he's over the American Italian Northeast Mafia. And the woman's eyes go big and she's like, I thought it was a guy named Rossi. And she explains that her husband is taking over. And the woman thought she was saying that he was the one that did all this stuff to her. And she's like, no, 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 no. He didn't do anything to me. I was kidnapped. And someone else did this to me. My husband broke in and saved me. And she tells the woman about the prenup and the whole thing about if she got pregnant, she had to terminate it. And of course, the woman is like, you know, you can just leave and all this type of stuff. And she, of course, tells her, you know, it's a lot more complicated. And the woman gave her pushback at first, but eventually agreed to leave it out of the medical records. But she told her, I can't agree that he's not going to find out because other people do know and I can't control that. Um, but she at least was like, I won't let it, say anything and I won't put it in the medical records. And so she thanks her. And now Sophia is trying to think of a way that she can possibly try and get some type of protection. So her mother was Russian. So she's like, there's got to be something that I can bargain, with like some type of information. I need to find out more about my mother's side of the family, she's thinking. So hopefully uh, Anna can help her approach Victor. Even though the man's terrifying, she's trying to barter. She's trying to figure out a way that she can get some type of protection. The nurse also did tell her, I forgot to mention this, when she was speaking of her husband, she was like, yeah, he would barely leave. Like, we had to let him, shower here because he threw such a fit. We switch back to Luca, and he's telling Katerina the version, or shall we say, a version of what happened. So he says that the Bravadas are the ones that kidnapped Sophia. He and the other group of men took them all out. She wanted more details. She wanted to know exactly how her father died. And she said it was one to the head. And she was like, well, at least it was quick. He notices she's lost some weight. She's normally a lot more put together. She's not looking like Katerina. And of course, Franco is what? Not there. He is really disappointed in him. Um, and so he did ask her opinion about how to move forward with the whole war thing. And it shocked her because normally the men don't ask, their opinion. And she says, honestly, if the men who did it, if they're gone, then that's it. I don't want war. She's like, me and Franco were trying to have a baby. I might even be pregnant right now, and I just don't want my kid to have to deal with this. And he's like, okay, understood. So then Franco comes up and she tenses up. And Luca starts to wonder, I wonder if he's being aggressive with her. Because apparently they don't tolerate domestic violence. Like if one of the wives comes up and says that, their spouse has been abusing them and clearly they're all bruised up, they normally take out the husband and the woman becomes a widow. So that's what's so crazy about the fact that he was willing to hurt Sophia. It's crazy. And that's the reason I feel like he should have got that information out of him before he died. But anyway, I digress. So Franco, of course, when they're talking, Luca says to Franco, we're going to try peace again. He's talked to Katerina. And Franco, of course, looked in disgust. Is like, what do you mean? What are you asking her for? Since when did we start going to women for their opinion? And Luca says she's the daughter of the former Don. Why would I not ask her? So Katerina excuses herself and she goes to check on Sophia. And so Luca says to Franco, because he's like tired of Franco, because Franco's been a piece of shit when it comes to Katerina. This girl done lost both of her parents within a matter of weeks. And when she walks off, the first thing he says is she's getting too thin, you know? And he's like, she doesn't have the same ass as she did before. And Luca is just shocked, like, wow. So he goes off on him and basically says, he is going to have a sit down with the Russians and the Irish mobs. And Franco's all like, you should have the Irish stand by your side. They'll help you. They'll help take over. And I'm like, that's really funny coming from him. Like, why is he trying to side with the Irish? So Luca says to him, you might want to be a little mindful about who you're rooting for, considering the rumors of the past. And that shut Franco up. My whole thing with Franco is like, okay, if you haven't really been a part of the action, why is he so amped up to want to be in a war? That doesn't fit. Is it a FOMO thing where you're like you have been out of the action, so you feel like you've missed out and now you want in? Is that what it is? Like, I'm just trying to figure it out. Or is it some type of bullshit going on in the background? Because there's clearly something up with Franco. I don't like him for more than one reason. So I'm just kind of like, I just want to know exactly what his ass is up to. So then we switch back to Sophia. She's getting out of hospital. And as they get up to the curb to where the car is, Lucas says to her, "Why the fuck did you run? Why'd you do it?" She, of course, doesn't tell him anything about the baby, but she does say she's just tired of this shit. She wanted out. She's tired of the lies. She's tired of the back and forth with him. She's like, "I just want it out." And he was just like, "All this stuff you're talking about, but I've done to protect you." You know, she brought up how he came home her last night, the previous night before she left. They get in the car. She started to say something about some kind of way she was saying something about Rossi, like him taking him out, and he tells her to like shut up because he that's not the story that people know. But again, you should have told her that before you got around anybody else. You should have told her, this is what I'm telling people and this is why. So if the driver heard or anybody else heard, I'm like, that's on you, because you should have told her before. So then, of course, they're having their back and forth, and he starts fingering her, makes her come. It's a whole back and forth with him in there. It's crazy. She's thinking she's going to put up walls again because that's the safest thing at this point. And I'm like, oh my gosh, same with her. We're back to book one. So they get to the penthouse, and he wants her to tell him the truth of why she really left. And of course, she's not going to do it because she's not going to tell him about the baby, because she feels like the moment she does, he's going to take her to get it terminated. So he unleashes. He's like, you know what? I'm sick of this. You know, all that I do for you to protect you, I've gone against my people. I've known my whole lives. They do what they're supposed to do. They obey, and you won't do it. And I'm just trying to protect you. He's like, I am done. And he said something about giving her over to Victor, but he's like, I don't even know if you'd be worth it now, since you're no longer a virgin. And everything just hit her super hard. The fact that he said he was done with her was just too much for her. And so she knows she should leave this alone, but she doesn't. So she winds up going upstairs. But creeps the door open. She sees him in the bathroom. He's jacking off in the mirror. And so she's watching him, and then she winds up fingering herself, making herself come. And then he screams out, "Fuck," right after he nuts, and he slams his hand on the counter twice, breaks some glass, and he's hurt. So she goes up to him, and he's like, "Don't." He's like, "Get the fuck away from me." And she feels so horrible. So she runs to her room, locks the door, and cries. We switch back to Luca. He's in his office. He has Anna there, and Franco comes in. And of course, Franco's like, "The fuck is she doing here?" And Lucas is like, "Sit down. I invited her because we need her." So basically, Luca wants to try and infiltrate the Bravada and try and get some answers. Normally people let their guards down when they're having sex afterwards in bed with someone. So he thinks he can maybe try and get some type of information. He's even willing to let her tell some information as well, if that'll, get some intel. Franco's completely against it. He's like, "Why would you do that? Like, that could get her killed." And he just kind of looked at him. Luca was like, "Oh, now you care about what happens to a woman." And Franco's like, "I'm just saying. So again, it just doesn't make sense. I'm ready to find out again what's going on, because Franco is getting on my nerves. But anyway, Franco objects, but Luca shuts his ass down and told him, clearly, I protected you for too long. You need to learn how things are going to be. And that's that. So they're going to put like a really small wire to see if she can get any type of information. And I'm like, okay, but that seems a little, I don't know. Seems a little risky, you know? Y'all afraid she gonna lie? I mean, I don't know. That seems to be a little bit more risky. I think I don't watch too many shows. So our boy Luca wants to set up something called a conclave, which is basically where the heads of the families get together. Um, it's a peaceful thing. No one's supposed to have any weapons, that whole type of deal. And they're supposed to be able to talk out issues. Well, before that, to call that meeting, he's called a little meeting of a couple of the heads. Old boy Colin, who's the head of the Irish mafia, and Victor doesn't come, who's over the Russian mafia. He sends Levin, his second in command, which pisses Luca off because he wanted to talk to Victor directly, but at this point, it is what it is. Um, he's looking at the Colin guy and he's like, "Damn, he really that looks like Franco." But there's a birth certificate. There's DNA, not birth certificate, because that don't mean stuff. People can alter things, but there apparently is DNA test that says otherwise. But however, so he wants to know who is the person that is responsible for the explosion. He's like, I need to know. Neither one of them take responsibility for it. Um, he took offense because he's pissed. The Colin guy, he's like, I told you I didn't do it, but like Luca kept on, like, no, it's got to be one of you. So who is it? So Luca's pissed off. They keep going back and forth, and Luca says, you know what? At this point, fuck it. Here's what I want. I better have a name by the end of the conclave. If not, I'm going to war with all of you and I'll kill you all. I said, well, damn. We switch back to Sophia. She found a way to kind of, I guess she found the code for the iPad and she was able to send a message to Anna. So Anna comes over to the penthouse and the first thing she says, like, does Luca know I'm here? And she says no. She told her what she did. They went in the bathroom because that seems to be the place that doesn't have any cameras. So they talk and she tells Anna that she's pregnant. And Anna was like, wait a minute, happened? Because y'all only did it on your wedding night and that was it. So I guess she didn't hear them fucking all night, but Katerina clearly heard them. That night he came back from the Dominican Republic. So she told her, like, yeah, but after he came back from the Dominican Republic, we fucked a lot, and we did start using condoms, but that first night or so we didn't. So then Anna tells her about what Luca asked her to do, and Sophia tells her the plan she was trying to work up. And she's trying to figure out if there's a way that Victor would help her since she is part Russian. And so Anna was just kind of like, don't you think they already know that? And she's like, I don't know. So Anna's like, okay, well, I'm already going in, so I might as well go in and try and find out and see if that can be done as well. And she tells Sophia, you need to be completely obedient. Well, not too obedient, because if you act too different, he's going to know something's up. But you just need to keep him in the good graces while we're figuring out a way to get you out of here, you know? Um, Something's brewing, so you need to act like you're not putting up a fight with a lot of stuff. Don't fully change. You're gonna butt hit. She fights a little bit, so you gotta still fight a little bit, but don't just completely shut him out like her plan was before. Like, don't do that. So, sure enough, later that night when he comes home, gets in the shower, she gets naked, and when she opens the shower, he looks at her and he says, Sophia. And then he says, what the fuck are you doing? And she's like, I'm sorry. And she starts touching him. He still got his guard up, you know, but of course he caves. She sucks him off. He comes in her mouth. And then they have this great fuck session. He doesn't come inside her. In her head, she's thinking, he might as well. But again, he doesn't know she's pregnant. So he's thinking not to do it. So what he does is he have her get on her knees and he's like, I want you to taste yourself while you swallow my cum. And I just said, damn, like, damn. And so that's what she does. So here's the thing, it's going to be difficult for her to fake this because here's the thing, she wants him. So this part is very real. This is not fake. We switch back to Luca. He's in his office. Um and he's given Anna some names of some of the guys he wants her to target in the Bravada. It's a Friday night. She, of course, is like, okay. So then Sophia is in the living room with Katerina. They're watching a movie, and he winds up going in his room. Her clothes are on the floor. He's like, God damn it, why she just can't keep herself tidy? But then he winds up getting her panties, smelling them, and jacking off to them. And then Sophia walks in, and she just looks at him, and she's like, you should have just called me. And he was like, well, you were with Katerina. And she said, she's gone. She locks the door. Everything in his mind is saying something's off, something's right. Like, something's going on. And it's like, but he is just too horny now to like fight against it. He's like, fuck it. I don't even give a shit. Even if she is doing something, I don't even care. Um, he's hoping in his mind, he's thinking after everything happens that maybe they can have something real. So he strips, of course. And then they wind up having a nice hard fuck. And then he's also having, thinking about like them having a kid together. Like Rossi wanted the line to keep going and he was down for that. But considering what Rossi's done, he's not thinking about that. He's not thinking about having a family of his own. And so after they fuck, they're laying there and she says to him if they could possibly like have a honeymoon, like do a getaway. And he tells her about the conclave that's going to be going down in a couple weeks. And she was like, okay, cool, and they talked and he winds up caving in. He decides we'll go on this vacation. And because she had asked him, like, what do you want to, like, do you just want to make me, move out? Or you can just divorce me now since Rossi's dead, you know? And he, of course, doesn't want her moving out, doesn't want her to divorce her. And because there's a ceasefire right now, from now up until like the conclave is complete, he figures Franco can kind of handle day to day stuff while he's going. So he's just gonna take her on this honeymoon. So then we switch back to Luca, and he's on his way to see Hugh, and we find out he has found out the girl is pregnant. So what happened is he's been hearing her throwing up in the bathroom different times. Like she turned on the water, but he could still hear it. And then she would never say she was sick. She never sent out for someone to get some medicine. And then he remembered that night that he came back from Dominican Republic and how much they fucked and never used any protection. And so he went to the nurse. She refused to buckle, but then he went to the doctor, her boss, and he threw his weight around with him, and the boss, the doctor caved and was like, yeah, she's pregnant. She said she wanted to tell you herself. Um, so then he's going to Father Donahue, even though I'm like, you don't punch this damn man. So the first thing he says, of course, is that he's sorry. Donahue was like, long as you're not here for another round, I understand you were in a bad way. I get it, right? And so he admits to Father Donahue that he knows about the baby. He doesn't make Father Donahue admit that he knows, but he tells him about the fact that he's been thinking about what it would be like to have a child. And, he will want his child to rule and take over what he's built. And so Father Donahue um, knows that he's the one that took out Rossi, but he doesn't judge him for it. He tells him, I can't give you absolution for that, but Rossi was a bad man. He did a lot of stuff, and you doing what you had to do to protect your family, it is what it is. He says, but what you need to do is be ruthless in your pursuit of her as far as keeping her safe, having a life with her and loving her. Because he kept trying to say he didn't know like if he was in love with her. But he's like, when you went busting down doors to go get her, did you think about your safety? He's like, no. He's like, every time you've ever had to do anything, do you ever think about your safety? No, your first thought is to protect her. He's like, that's love. He's like, and that can always grow into even more affection for an individual. But if you are already doing that, honey, you pretty much there. Let's just be honest. When you ain't thinking about self at all, oh baby, you're already there. So we gonna see how he fights. We switch back to Sophia. They're boarding on the private jet. They're going on their honeymoon. Their champagne. It's the same champagne that they had at their wedding. And so she's like, oh shoot, like how am I gonna drink in this? So then she says something to him to throw him off. And she's like, because he's looking at her like is something wrong with it or whatever. And she's just like, oh, my stomach has been, kind of reeling, whatever. And she makes a beeline for the bathroom, throws up. So when she comes out, she's like, I just think it was the descent, and now we're evening out, and I think it's just, caught up to me or whatever. Then, of course, she's having all these little thoughts about the fact that she's supposed to be faking this, but this isn't fake. It's real. The problem is she knows she's fallen in love with him. She likes the idea of having a real marriage with him, having a family with him. And there's just a ton of thoughts running through the girl's mind. And she starts to think that maybe this was not the best idea to come on this honeymoon because, again, it's all real. And as they descend, she sees this beautiful blue water. And she's like, where are we? And he says they're in Mystique. Sophia absolutely loves this place. He bought out the whole island, so they're the only people there along with the staff. That's it. She chose the villa she wants. It's like having an island within an island. They make love all day. It's just a beautiful time for her. She's never had this with him where they've literally spent the whole day together, and she absolutely loves it. And so she decides to ask him, what if he had a child? And he looks at her and he says, um, first he tells her how much he loves that she asks him like these thought provoking questions. Um, and that, he wants to make changes within the organization. He said if he had a son, he would want to leave it to him, leave it to him. But he said if he had a daughter, he would want to do that too. That's the reason he would want to make changes as well within the organization. He would want to be able to leave his daughter in charge. And so she's just about to tell him she's pregnant, but he starts kissing her, and it wasn't rough sex. It was that need sex like she had when they first came back from the Dominican. When he first, I'm sorry, came back from the Dominican Republic, like he needed her, he craved her, and she knows at this point she's gone. Okay, like she wants him, she wants this, she wants this life, she wants everything that involves our boy Luca. So they spend the rest of the week just having a wonderful days, waking up, having breakfast, going swimming, having sex, just a beautiful week. They get back to New York. She's afraid that he might change once they get back in the city. He doesn't. He's still loving towards her. And then they get to the elevator, to the elevator, and there's blood everywhere. Someone's clearly was trying to reach for something. He takes his gun out. He's like, we'll take the stairs. Well, they get to the top of the stairs. Gotta remember he's in the penthouse. It's a lot of fuck stairs. She's panting. He opens the door, and Anna's crumpled body right in front of the door. She isn't dead, thankfully, but they fucked her up pretty bad. They cut up her feet, put blisters on them. It was so fucked up to what they did to her. She'll probably never dance again. They get her inside. They wash her off. At first, girl was like, "Call, we gotta get, get her to the hospital." But he's like, "We can't do that." Like, so they get her inside. They wash her off. She's going in and out of consciousness. He asks her who did it. Was it the bravado? And she said no. He says, "Well, who did it?" He's like, "I'm gonna avenge this shit. Like, who did it?" Before this though, he did apologize to her while she was out at one point, Anna. And Luca did say to Sophia, that he was sorry that he hadn't really realized what she gave up. He was so focused on protecting her, and that she should have been grateful for that, and not realizing that she lost the whole life that she had before her dreams and stuff were gone, and he never acknowledged that, and he was sorry for that. And she never thought he would ever apologize for that, so that shocked the shit out of her. So anyway, Anna comes to and tells them it was Franco. And he's like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, it was Franco." And so he leaves because he's going to go talk to Franco. And then Anna tells Sophia what she found out. So so she did wind up fucking with a couple of the guys in the Bravada. So what she found out is her mother basically was the daughter of the person second in command to the head guy in the mafia in Russia, in Moscow to be specific. And she was supposed to marry some other guy, that whole power thing, but she didn't do it. And that's why it's such a scandal when Giovanni married her, because like she was second in command to she's like probably the most prized woman in the mafia in Moscow. And so that's why it was like this really huge deal. And the reason that Victor wanted to marry Sophia was because she would have given him some legitimacy to that Russian mafia. So basically, Victor is like a made man. Like he had to work his way up into this position, right? And so having someone from that lineage, from such power in Moscow, that would have just legitimized him so much. So that's why he wanted to marry old girl Sophia. So that of course shocks her. She's like, "Oh, so he didn't want to sell me." It's like, oh, doors bust open, and she's thinking that, oh my gosh, like somebody done got in again, but it's Luca, and he is pissed, and he tells Sophia to get upstairs now. And so she didn't want to leave Anna, but she saw the look on his face, and so she went upstairs. So then we switch back to Luca, and when he went to talk to Franco, Franco told him that he heard through the listening devices that are throughout the apartment that the girls were planning to conspire with the Russians to get Sophia out. So he's like, she's a traitor, all this type of stuff. He tells her, you lured me in, called her a whore, all kind of stuff. He went off on her. And he's like, he can never ever trust her. He knew he shouldn't have done it, X, Y, and Z. She's stuck in that apartment. He says Franco's going to be the one to watch over them. And she's like, how could you do that after what he did to Anna? And he says, you better be glad both of you aren't dead. And he's like, you were willing to trade me in. And she's crying and stuff, but he didn't care. He was just done with it. He's going to the conclave. He's going to leave Franco at the penthouse. And then he'll decide after the conclave what he's going to do with her. I was just like, ooh. But, I mean, I understand him being upset. Not just because he understands why she's trying to get away, but the idea that she was going to turn on him. But I don't think she was going to really do that. I think she was just trying to find a way to get out if they would help her get out. That's all, to keep her kid alive. But of course it comes off like you were going to like trade me in, so everything you've ever said to me is a lie. So I get why he, says that. And then he also said to her, he should have just let old boy take her out. I was like, damn. And so she doesn't say anything. She's crying. We switch back to Sophia, and Anna's giving her the rest of the tea. So, like I said before, she did smash a couple of the Russian dudes, right? And she was like, I don't know why I haven't, I thought they were selfish lovers and this and that, but they were like the best ladies. She's like, I should have been, messing with Russian gangsters. I said, I can't. But anyway, she finds out that Franco's father is calling, and Victor has the real paternity results. So Franco's mother had paid some administrator to change those results, and those are the ones that she gave to Rossi. Victor was able to get his hands on the real ones, and he's been holding that over Franco's head, making Franco feed him information. So Franco is a true betrayer, the one that's truly betrayed him, Um, so they've been able to make so much ground in on the Italian territory because Franco's been giving them so much information. So at first Sophia was just stuck on the parentage thing, right? And she's like, Luca's not going to care about that, you know? And she's like, but he's going to care about the part that he's been the one that's been putting everyone at risk, you know? He's going to care about that. So apparently at this meeting, what's supposed to happen is Victor is going to reveal everything to Luca. And this should be some mess. That's all I can say. This is going to be some mess. So then she tells her she wants to know about her honeymoon. She tells her about where they went to Mystique and the whole thing. And Anna just kind of let her know, I don't think he's a bad person, you know? I think he does bad stuff when he has to, but not because he wants to do it. And she's like, he's different with you. Like, I think the man's like falling in love with you, you know? And they don't think Katerina is in on anything. Um, because she grew up in the lifestyle, I don't know. I'm a little skeptical just because her devotion to her husband, even though he a piece of shit. I mean, her father was a piece of shit, right? But there's still a devotion to them. So I'm not. I hope she isn't. I really hope she isn't, because she's been so incredibly sweet and loving towards Sophia. So I hope not. I really do. I hope not. So he's kind of walking into poor Luca into, he's gonna get hit with a lot of stuff. It's gonna be a little scary. That's gonna be a lot to take in, that your best friend has been betraying you for however long. We don't know how long it goes back, but for however long. That's a lot. I do feel bad for Luca. Sophia winds up going into his office. She thought it was gonna be locked, but it wasn't. And at first she was like, at this point she done broke so many rules, it don't even matter at this point. So she goes, around, she finds his journal, and it's all his thoughts throughout this time that they've known each other. Before he fucked her, after he fucked her, and after she was kidnapped. And this is where he put all his thoughts. So at first it was like, um, you know, he felt like if I fuck her, I'll get her out of my system, I'll be good. And then after that first fuck, it was like I feel addicted to her, X, Y, Z. Then after she got kidnapped, it was like I've got to put walls up to protect her, because if someone found out that I loved her, she would become a target. So he writes in that journal that he loves her, and she's like, oh my gosh, okay, it all makes sense. Like, she can finally admit she's not falling, she's in love with her husband, and she wants to make this work. She wants to be strong, she wants to be by his side, she wants this life with him. The conclave is being held in Boston at a hotel. I thought it was, secret society type stuff. I don't know. I was thinking like a cave. And I think because it's conclave, I was just thinking somewhere a little bit more secretive, not an actual hotel. You know what I'm saying? It was so different from what I was thinking. Um, but anyway, he goes. Colin's there along with his oldest son, whose name is Liam. He's next in line to take over. And then, of course, Victor and his guy, Levin. So Victor, of course, is like, I see you left your second in command at home. And he's like, yeah, well, I needed someone to watch my wife, And Victor was like, I understand. She is very beautiful. And he made a statement um, saying that maybe if he hadn't left his wife, I think her name was like Katharina or something. It's close to Katarina, actually. That something, maybe what happened to her wouldn't have happened. And Luca says, that was an accident. He didn't have anything to do with it. And he says, I know it wasn't you. I know it was your boss. It was Rossi. So anyway, Victor comes out with the tea, honey. Okay? Victor has receipts. And Victor breaks out this folder and he basically lets him know you're about to learn a lot of stuff today. And so he tells him the truth about Franco's parentage. Of course, Luca doesn't care about that. But then he says, what you don't know is that he's been betraying you and me for quite a few months. He said, I thought he was working for me. And then the look on Colin's face, Luca knows something's up. Because, of course, he didn't want to believe any of this. But, how people have a poker face, but they always have a tail. And he realizes what Boy is saying, it's not a lie. And he has the proof. So what the real plan was that Colin and Franco were the ones responsible for the explosion. And so what they were going to do is they were going to, of course, they were going to think that it was the Russians that did it. And this was supposed to start a war. So the war between the Russians and the Italian was going to weaken both of them so that the Irish could then come in and take over Manhattan. I said, I'm all the way done. All the way done. But I knew Franco wasn't no fucking good. I knew it. So, of course, Colin draws a gun, points it at Luca, and he's like, he's tired of getting the scraps from the Russians and the Italians. He's like, we run your drugs, we run your guns, and all we get are scraps, and I'm tired of it. And so his son Liam is looking like, what the hell? Like, what are you doing? So clearly, Luca makes a note. He didn't know anything about this. And he's like, he'll be spared. Well, then Victor pulls out a gun. He say, well, damn, I'm the only one who followed the rules. I'm like, oh my gosh. So a shot goes off. Luca's able to like duck and move, but he's not fast enough. When the other one comes and hits him in the stomach, he's going down. He's thinking about Sophia and the fact that he told her, he had never said to her he loved her, and how mad he was with her, and his regret now is that he never told her. So he thinks this is it. So then we switch back to Sophia, and she's about to walk out of the office when old Franco bursts in. And of course, he's like, what are you doing in here? Are you trying to steal now? Are you a thief too? And all this type of crap. And then he tells her that Luca's dead. And she's like, no, that's not possible. And he's like, he was weak. You made him weak. And she said something about he loves me. He kind of laughed that off. He's like, yeah, he doesn't love anybody and all this type of stuff. And then he even thought about violating her, but he's like, I'm just going to take you out. You're a problem. So she was, thinking in her head, like, no more being a pussy. Like, I got to stand up. I have to be the queen that I am. All this scaredy cat shit, I got to cut it out. And so when he shoots at her, she ducks behind the desk, and then she thinks like he's got to have a gun in this desk. And so she thinks real quick, he's right-handed, so it's going to be right here in this drawer. Sure enough, she pulls it out. She's like, I hope it's loaded, because she doesn't know how to, load a gun. And she shoots. Of course, she misses the first one. He kept saying while he's shooting at her, like, you just won't fucking die. Like, why won't you just die, And she takes a second to aim, and she hits that bitch right in the head, and he falls. And then when she goes over to where he is, she throws up all over his body. And the first thing this made me think about is a movie called Spy. And when she threw up on a dead body, it just made me think about So Anna had came to the door as well. And she, of course, was like, you're not supposed to be on your feet or whatever. And she's like, a gunfight was going on. I'm going to get up. So then she winds up passing out after she threw up Sophia. And when she came to, Katarina was on her way. Raul had removed Franco and everything. He got up there, I guess, a little quick. I mean, he didn't get up there quick enough because she wound up having to shoot him. Just saying. But he got up there because he saw where Franco had shut off the security cameras. So clearly something was going on. But again, he didn't get there fast enough. She had to kill him herself. But you know what? That was the thing. Like, you can't wait for somebody to come and save you. You know, you gotta. Katarina comes up as they're taking the body out. She ain't even mad. As she came up, security had told her what happened, and she knew, like, Sophia wouldn't just kill nobody for no reason. And then we find out he's been abusing her, and she shows her bruises, you know. And then when she looks at Anna, she says, "He did that to you, didn't he?" And Anna, admits that he did. And so they tell her about what's been, the whole what's going on about her being pregnant, the contract. Katarina didn't know anything about that contract. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, it's just awful." She's like, "But you need to tell him. You need to give him the opportunity to make it right." And so now, of course, she's just hoping that he comes home at this point. So Luca wakes up. He thinks, he's seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but it's a hospital room. But he's not in the room alone. Colin McGregor is there with a gun pointed at him, and he basically came to finish the job. Once he's done taking Luca out, he's going to go in the other room and take out Victor too, because Victor got shot as well. So he's said something about he's not sure what he's going to do with Sophia. Maybe he'll make her one of his side pieces when he doesn't want to sleep with the old missus. And of course, old boy Luca's like, "You're not going to touch her. You're not going to lay a hand on her." And he's like, "What are you gonna do?" He's got a gun pointed to his head. And then at that moment, Luca had accepted his fate. And then boom, door pops open. His security guard, I think his name was Val, shot Colin. He's not dead, but he's like unconscious. And so a week later, he's released from the hospital. He flies back to New York, gets to the penthouse. He looks for Sophia, but Anna's in her room. And of course, she's in their bedroom. She doesn't look at him when he comes in. She tells him she's glad he's okay. And he's like, "Really?" And he was like shocked that she was glad he was okay. He lays it out to her. He's like, "The bravado threat's done. We can go back to the original plan, or we could just divorce. You can still have your life. You know, you can, I can speak with someone to get you back in Juilliard. You can still have that life that you dreamed." Um, Even though he told her if she wanted a divorce, he'd give it to her in his mind. He was like, "I'm not divorcing her." Basically, he just wants to put it all out to see what choice she's gonna make. And she opens her mouth and looks at him for the first time since he's been in the room, and she says, "Luca, I'm pregnant." Luca admits to her he knew about the pregnancy before they went on the honeymoon. And she's like, "Why you didn't say anything?" He said, "Because I wanted you to tell me when you were ready." They have this really nice moment, this really nice heart fuck, and there's all these "I love yous," and we fast forward. Um, Luca's having a meeting with Liam and Victor. Victor gives Liam his father's ring, told him, "Your father died honorably. He didn't like try and weasel away. He took it like a G, basically." And Liam, of course, was like, "If I had known what was going on, I would have put a stop to it. He just wants peace as well." And so Victor says, "Okay, we'll return the body to you for your family for burial." So then Lucas is like, "Okay, is that enough? Is that enough for peace?" And Victor says, "I just want one more thing." He says, "I want Franco Bianchi's widow. I want Katerina as my wife." And that's how the book ends. Now, if you want to know about that story, there's a bridal trilogy that goes into detail. Now, I'm not going to review it, but I am going to read that on my own. I'm quite sure you all are going to read it too. So, what did you guys think of not only Ruthless Promise, but of this series? I liked it. This was a really great read. Again, shout out to Imana Mary. Great recommendation. Um, if any of you have any suggestions, drop down in the comment section and let me know. And eventually I'll be able to get around to them. I really like this though. I really did. The mere fact that I want to jump into the Bridal trilogy, it was a good book. I mean, clearly it's two things. It's like sheltering a person can have some damaging effects because then they don't have a realistic version of the real world. And at the same time, when you've known too much pain and things like that, you can become jaded as well. So I think the two of them together, they'll, kind of balance each other out. Um, they clearly love each other. And I thought it was a good read. They got on my nerves quite a few times, and I don't mind saying that about a character. But just to have them admit the truth was just so so wonderful. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I will have those links down available below in the description section. Make sure you like and subscribe and share. As always, I truly do thank you all for your support and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.